Today is concert number 2 in the set of 3 Sunday afternoon concerts. Last week, the string trio was phenomenal. A definite change of pace this afternoon at 3. The Dixie Ramblers playing Dixieland music, and just exactly what you would imagine as part of the repertoire will be there. Bring your own lawn chair if you have one. If not, some of our folks will bring some folding chairs outside the building and have them available for you. The sound system is great, so you can easily sit in your car if you choose to do that and hear just fine. Masks and social distancing are expected. Uh, we can't say enough about how important it is for all of us to do this simple protective task of wearing a mask right now. The head of the CDC said if everyone would wear a mask, we would be able to kick this coronavirus devastation in a matter of a couple of months. Isn't that astounding? Well, I'm not going to get off on that right now because I want you to think about joining us this afternoon at 3 for the second Sunday afternoon concert planned by Melissa Hayai and our music committee. It will be well worth your time. And now an official welcome to you on this Sunday morning, September the 20th. Welcome to Silverside Online. Delighted that you are a part of our online gathering here today. You are most welcome. My topic for today is a little bit of a surprise, perhaps, and if you think it only pertains to women, you are definitely wrong, so stay tuned. It came to me, I suppose in part I was inspired by Laura Englehart's presentation, the taped presentation um, that we heard earlier in the week, and then the live presentation that some of us were able to participate in by way of Zoom yesterday afternoon. And also because I'm working with a family right now planning a memorial service for their mother, who was a truly remarkable person. And Proverbs 31 is very frequently used uh, on Mother's Day and at the memorial services of remarkable women. The problem is it's quite dated in terms of its cultural perspectives, and it um, kind of fatigues the women who are alive and listening to it. So, um, in talking with this family, I said, would you like for me to try to come up with a modern paraphrase of Proverbs 31? And let's see if this is something you would like to maybe use at your mom's memorial service. And they agreed that they would like to have me give it a shot. And I have done so. I don't know if they like it yet or not. It's all up to them. But that's where we're headed today. What makes a modern woman praiseworthy? Um, how does she find her place in this complex world, this increasingly complex world that puts more and more pressure on women to be and to do certain things in certain ways? It's a remarkable set of weights and responsibilities to carry around to try to do things well. An example right now in this pandemic would be a mother, a young mother who is trying to work, let's say offsite, and manage to do online instruction support for her children who are going to virtual school during this time. And then there's the household responsibilities that she shares with her partner that never stop, regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic. In fact, the more we're at home, the more messes there are to clean up, even though you neat freaks delight in that because it just gives you an opportunity to be neater and neater and neater. But anyway, um, so the ancient Hebrew text envisioned the ideal woman. mm, It's a progressive ways for the time, but if we stop there and still try to use that as a guideline for women today who would like to benefit from properly interpreted scripture, healthily interpreted scripture, and those are two big things that often aren't done. But anyway, women who would fall into those categories today would be fatigued at best and frustrated at worst. Many Hebrew scripture scholars believe that the bulk of the book of Proverbs, which, if you had a Bible in your hands, which I'm willing to bet you don't, but if you did, it's the book that follows Psalms. And this is the last chapter. Proverbs 31 is the last chapter in this book. And many Hebrew scripture scholars believe that the bulk of the book of Proverbs might have been written and circulated 700 or so years before the birth of Jesus. But this last segment of chapter 31, which we're focusing on this morning, um, probably was not appended to the original until about the 4th century uh, before Jesus was born. And that led to however many hundreds of years of guilt for women and gloating men, because this idealized woman has hardly ever been lived up to. And yet, I'm not sure about what happens in synagogues, but in churches, this is the favored passage at Mother's Day services, and very frequently, when a pious woman has died, this is the passage that is read at a memorial service. Um, I'll say some things about that in a moment. Now, in the 20th century, scholars began to dig more deeply into this and give reason for women to give up their guilt, those who are trying to live by the standards of Scripture, to give up their guilt. And now into the 21st century, we have scholars of Proverbs completely relieving women of their guilt and men of their inclination to gloat over guilty women, which in traditional and conservative churches is a widespread thing. Some of you will never have heard this. Some of you will have heard it frequently, but without giving any kind of background information just yet, or getting to my update of it, I'll just read it the way it appears in Scripture. I'm using for my reading the New Revised Standard Version of the Hebrew Bible. A capable wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She's like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from far away. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and tasks for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it, and with the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hand to the distaff and her hands to hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's not afraid for her household when it snows, for all her household are clothed in crimson. She makes herself coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the city gates, taking his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies the merchant with sashes. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her happy, her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who reverences the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the city gates. She was some remarkable woman, wasn't she? Let me tell you a few things about the Proverbs 30:31 woman, also called the virtuous wife. She never existed. This was never one person, never intended to be one person. It is a composite picture of an idealized woman intended to inspire women to be all they can be in that ancient culture. Furthermore, you need to keep in mind that this was written to an audience of men, not women. It was penned by a queen. Hmm. Uh, Intended for her son to help give him some guidance in choosing a wife. It was a poem. So there's poetic license involved as well. Those things I think are very, very important. So there's some goals here. Some women might try to live toward to the extent that they are inspired and to the extent that they are gifted. But no one person probably can do all of these things. I mean, for one thing, this Proverbs 31 woman never sleeps. She just can't keep going. She's up before the crack of dawn, and her night light never goes out. She's at working at night. She's up, even though she has maids, she's up preparing the meals for the family. Uh, she's she weaves clothing for the whole household. My goodness. Um, Now you know some remarkable women who burn the candle at 14 ends. Yes, indeed. That's what it takes for lots of modern women to survive. Right now in the pandemic, how many women and men too, as far as that goes, do you know who are managing to do a job either on a job site or at home and teach their kids at home and keep the dog fed and taken to the vet and all those sorts of things. It's a lot. Um, the idea that the queen who wrote this had in mind is that the ideal woman could balance her life and use her gifts to the maximum extent for the well-being of her family, but something kept her going so that she didn't lose her energy, her drive, her desire to be all things to all people to the extent that that was possible. Her husband thought she was terrific. Her kids thought she was terrific. I imagine that that wasn't an everyday thing. I imagine that she didn't think they were so terrific every single day. But looking at the big picture, they loved and admired one another. That is, she and her spouse, she and her kids, all in all, loved and adored each other. Um, she did the most she could do with what was available to her for the well-being of others, and not only those in her household, but she was magnanimous enough to care about those who were struggling and not doing nearly so well uh, outside the gates of where she lived. So it's an amazing picture. But if women today can get any real benefit out of it, there has to be some transposition of ideas and roles. So I'll share with you what I wrote up for the family pondering some use of Proverbs 31 in a modern form for memorializing their mom. Um, and I imagine that you'll be surprised at least once or twice during this paraphrase of Proverbs 31. If you don't know the difference between a translation and a paraphrase, it's very important to keep those in mind when you're reading scripture. A translation, even though translators can take all sorts of liberties, but a translation is supposed to be an honest rendering of the ancient text into the language in which the people are reading her or his work. So the New Testament is the Second Testament is written in Koine Greek. It has to be translated into English for most U.S. Americans and others in the first world to read it. Huh? A paraphrase is having someone come along in whatever language and try to say what it means uh, in a rewording kind of updated way. No translation is involved. Okay, so this is no translation. This is a paraphrase with an extensive number of liberties to be comprehensive about how women might be encouraged today to be affirmed as they try to live out um, life with a huge number of responsibilities crammed on many of them. Not to say that women in days gone by didn't have heavy responsibilities. Of course, we know that is not the case. They did. It's a different pace. It's a different pace today than in days gone by. So, that said, here's my paraphrase. Gracious God, we are grateful for your presence today with those who have suffered losses as a result of horrendous weather in recent days, those who have lost property, those who have lost loved ones, those who are trying to piece their lives back together. We're grateful for those who are responding and trying to help rebuilding processes start for these folks to the extent that that is possible. We're grateful also for your presence with those who are trying to make sense out of the barrage of lies being tossed at even thinking people on an hour by hour, indeed, and minute by minute basis in our culture these days. We give you thanks for those who believe that inconvenience is more important than the loss of life. We're also grateful today, gracious God, for your presence with those who are trying to understand how to apply their talents and gifts in making a positive difference in the world. And if they have chosen relationships, in those relationships, the demands on those who attempt to go through life as a unit, whether a couple or a family, those folks face increasingly nearly impossible demands. During the pandemic, things are so difficult. We're mindful of your presence always with those who struggle, and we are grateful. Amen. From the Queen to the Princess and the Prince. My son and my daughter, when it comes time for spouse seeking, if you find yourself to be suited for marriage, where will you find the ideal woman? She is out there and may be a challenge to find, but when you do, you will know you have found a treasure. Foundationally, be certain that she too desires marriage and has the capabilities to commit to it. Listen to your mother. In your heart, you will know that you will always be able to trust her, and you will naturally, comfortably see to each other's well being. She will always treat you well. She will never do anything to harm you. She cares about her appearance and dresses accordingly. Not all women will necessarily have all of the following gifts, but the woman who builds a life with you will have some of them. If she is a homemaker, she sees that you are well clothed year round, and if there are children, the same for them, of course. Your home will be well appointed. You will eat healthily. Your health and her own are matters of her ongoing concern. She gets the help she needs around the house to be certain it's a place you love to be and be together. She is also certain that your home is structured and stocked to see you through crises and calamities that may come. If she has a nose for business, she puts it to good use. For example, should she invest in property, she will have determined how the land is best suited to support your family. Vineyards do well, just saying. Or maybe cottage industry is more her preference if she's an artisanal entrepreneur. The products she makes and sells, her tapestries and other woven goods, let's say, are well constructed and designed and build a bevy of return customers. Her concerns extend beyond her, your home and family. She's concerned about those plagued by poverty and otherwise in need, and she stays involved in organizing to make sure the hungry are fed and the homeless housed. In addition to compassion, she's known at home and away from home for her kindness. All that she does away from home brings honor to her family back at home. She enthusiastically and unselfishly supports your endeavors. She conducts herself whatever life brings in ways that reveal her strength and dignity. When she speaks, what she says is worth hearing because she's wise. You, as her spouse, will never stop singing her praises. And if you have children, they will constantly celebrate the happiness she brings. Charm can be deceitful, and beauty can be cause for vanity. A woman who reverences God is the real deal, though. You be sure to praise her at home and in public.